This conference will now be recorded.
I can hear that.
I'd like to call to order the regular December 2nd, 2024 council meeting to order at 6:30 PM. All rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight here at this meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda tonight?
No.
Anyone like to make a motion to accept the agenda as written? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilor Norman.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
against? Hearing none, motion carried.
Oh, thank you. Moving right into the mayor's report. Citizen of the month. Donald, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I know the person has done a lot more, but these are things I can tell you off the top of my head. Has done quite a bit of work when the lagoons got rehabbed. Overseen a bunch of that and made sure it was going to go well. And then he's did a lot of the street inventory, sidewalk inventory, helped Ben with the water calculation and the sewer calculation, and maintains the pumps at the lake to make sure we got plenty of water for the fish and it gets stocked. And if it leaks, he gets after us. And it's been real helpful in getting the new docks things situated around, the old ones fixed so they'd work and in place. So I'd like to give this award to Dale Webb. Better get down here, so.
Like shoot us.
Yes.
Speech. Speech, yeah. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. Don't blink. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for all your service.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dale. Hey, Dale, keep up the good work.
Yeah. Can't be hard yet.
Okay, moving right into any presentations tonight? Stephanie? Oh, okay. Any council committee meeting reports tonight?
I
Go ahead.
attended the Parks Committee meeting for November. It was a week early due to Thanksgiving. I gave them some updates after meeting with Josette that week about, hopefully what we're going to hear about tonight with the campground and the no smoking signage. So they are working on that. We do have a recommendation for an application this evening to fill one of their vacant seats. They do still have one other vacant seat available. And then something they didn't ask me to say, but I feel really compelled because I know they've been feeling strongly about it for the last few months and has led to the resignations that have happened, is that at the presentation that they made on the no smoking in parks recommendation, it was not that the decision that was made that was not the issue, but they did feel that some of the comments and tone from council were not respectful. And so that has caused some resignations from your committee.
Okay.
Mhm.
Dale?
Yeah,
Public Works?
Public Works met on the 26th of last month. Looks like we're wrapping up the pedestrian improvement project. Ben printed out some new maps, which should be pretty much final, looks like. We're pretty much in agreement, except they had one section, they weren't, something about sidewalk up there to the schools off of Louisiana. They weren't, so anyhow, we'll just,
I just mapped what I was told to map. I'm not making, if they need to come back and get revisions, they can do that.
they brought a draft of, Public Works was going to start putting some articles in the paper about the project, so people can be more informed. Scott definitely would know all about it. So they had a draft of that. I think that was pretty much approved by the committee. So you should be starting to see that. I think they're talking about quarterly.
Yeah, that's what, I'm working with Sheila on that. She's going to provide a quarterly report that talks about the projects, kind of tries to get the community a little more involved in what's going on.
Just what's
the projects they're doing. She wanted it approved by the committee and then also by city administration before it comes in. I think it'll be a quarterly thing that we're going to provide. Yeah.
Great. The dark sky standards, they'll be bringing a recommendation to council, I think, the next meeting on that for us to look over. They've compiled their committee accomplishment report for, they'll be coming with that, fulfilling their required
Yes.
duties. They canceled the December meeting because of Christmas. And that's pretty much it.
Good. Any talk on how's the new employee working out? Dale, pretty good?
It's working out great.
Great.
Ask this lady.
Great.
I
Good
met
news.
him a couple of times interacting with the crew, but that's it.
Good. All right. Thank you, Dale.
Yep.
I think that's all the meeting reports. So we'll move right into the public hearing. Public hearing is now open for the purpose of considering PA 24-01, a text amendment to Chapter 9-05, flood hazard reduction. The procedure I would like to follow tonight is in this manner. I'll read the disclosure statement, hear the staff report, hear public testimony, close the hearing, and city council will deliberate. I will open this hearing at 6:39 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, I call this hearing. My name is Rick Hobart. I am the chairman of the city council for Vernonia. Our role is to conduct public hearings and to make legislative decisions about land use matters in Vernonia. The item before us tonight is a legislative item. Members of the council are to be unbiased. Before the start of the hearing, I will ask the members of the council whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationship with regard to the land in question. If such a potential conflict exists, I will ask whether the council member in question believes he or she is without actual bias, or whether he or she would like to step down during the case review. A copy of the rules of procedure for the hearing, the agenda for today's hearing, and copies of the staff reports are available upon request. Any person with an interest in today's agenda item may offer relevant oral and/or written testimony, but please only speak when I identify you for that purpose. It is also important that you make your best case to the council. Because although all the decisions are subject to appeal, any such appeal will be heard by the Land Use Board of Appeals, and they will decide the appeal based solely on the evidence in the record before us. Please make sure your testimony is relevant to applicable standards for the item in question. Please do not repeat testimony offered by yourself or earlier witnesses. If I think your testimony is irrelevant or repetitious, I may interrupt and ask you to continue with another subject. Demonstrations from the audience are prohibited. Please refrain from them. Comments from the audience will not be part of the record. Any questions? That concludes the introduction. Does any council wish to declare any potential conflict of interest?
It is my recommendation that Councillor Ash and Mayor Hobart and Councillor Norman declare potential conflicts of interest. You can still discuss and act on this as it is for a zone as a whole, but just to proceed with caution, it's just safest to declare a potential.
I will declare a potential interest as I live in the area.
And I will also, because I reside in the floodplain.
I will declare possible conflict of interest because I own property in the flood zone.
Thank you.
Okay, then will the staff please proceed with a summary of their written report?
All right, so just to start off, this has absolutely nothing to do with the Endangered Species Act or any of the other litigation and all this other mess that's going on right now. This has absolutely nothing to do with that. Every 5 years, we have our FEMA review, which they call a community assistance visit, which is just basically checking up on us, making sure that we're doing everything okay. We did really good on that review. That being said, when in 2001, the state came up with new language for basic floodplain management language in our ordinance, and the city adopted it, but instead of kind of starting from scratch, it kind of got just kind of mashed together. Some things got omitted unintentionally, and it just wasn't executed very well. And so we kind of started from scratch. Staff kind of decided, well, here, we'll make this clean break and we'll just get all the language squared away, make FEMA and the state of Oregon happy. And then, of course, this other stuff came up in the middle of it. But again, that has nothing to do with it. So we're not making any major changes to the previous code, except what I'm going to go over here in a second. And I guess that's where we're at, is the minor changes that we are making. And these are basically related to staff's experience in doing floodplain management since the flood, essentially, and little things that have come up that we would like to deal with. So probably the biggest one is the special flood hazard area, which we have a map here. In the blue, you see the old one where we have these weird little holes in it. And basically, we're just enclosing those holes. So as a good example, you can see here on State Street, There's a couple of holes there. In one of those little holes is a home that had 48 inches of water. FEMA paid to elevate that home. If that home burnt down today and they came in, they could build their home back on ground level, and we couldn't, even knowing that they were in flood danger. So we're just filling in these little tiny holes. It's not, and we're not expanding, making the floodplain any bigger or anything. We're just enclosing those holes. Another one you may notice here is blue heron. So again, those were elevated with FEMA money. One of them burned down. Technically, they could build it back on the ground and be in flood danger. So we're just kind of filling in those little holes. So that's probably the biggest change that we're making. Substantial damage improvement. If your home is damaged over 50% of its value, it has to come into compliance. If you improve it more than 50% of its real market value, you have to bring it into compliance. If it isn't, we would like to, or what we had proposed, and Planning Commission approved, were 3 added criteria. If you increase the footprint of the building, the whole building has to be in compliance if it already. So essentially you're talking house on the ground, somebody wants to add an extra bedroom. Well, they could add the extra bedroom to be flood proof, but then the rest of the house isn't. So, and there's also a question in our, in chapter 1 of Title 9. Technically, this would already have to happen. You can't increase a non-compliance in our code in general with anything flood or, setbacks or anything like that. So this really isn't, it's just putting it in words in the floodplain, but under the current development code, we would have to do that anyways. We're just putting it into chapter 5. Adding levels to a structure. We have had people add extra floors. It's never happened in the floodplain. But there has been discussion over the years, if somebody does add another level to their house, are we really going to let them do that if their house isn't in compliance with the flood elevation stuff? Are we really going to allow them to add on to their house in that kind of substantial amount without being flood proofed? And then converting any existing part of the structure to an ADU, turning your garage into an accessory dwelling unit.
That would trigger.
That would trigger. So those are the, and that also kind of falls under the number 1. You would probably have to do that anyways based on just chapter 1 of Title 9. So really it's just the only one that's really kind of out of that is somebody adding a level. So, and I think the way that you could think of it is, say 15 years ago, if somebody put an extra level on their house, they would have met the 50% substantial improvement. They couldn't have added another level. But with housing costs and prices that they are, conceivably today, somebody could add an extra story to their house and it not meet the 50% threshold of substantial improvement to come into compliance. So that's really the only one we're changing. The other 2, 1 and 3, would already be required under chapter 1, but we're just kind of putting it into the code. We're adding requirements for recreational vehicle parks because we happen to have one of those in the floodplain. It's just the basics, the basic recreational vehicle standards, and then them also having an evacuation plan. So, and we've already, as a matter of fact, I've already worked with Stephen Assad down there to improve his evacuation plan. And they've actually, this year, they're actually implementing a more stringent one to get people out, and how his on-site staff is dealing with that. How will be police notifying them and time to go, et cetera. And then the last thing is just use restrictions on leased flood mitigation properties, the flood buyout lots. Most of this is straight out of FEMA's requirements for a lease agreement between the city and somebody leasing a lot. The only thing that we've added on is really the cultivation, the gardening component, which not from FEMA, but from our representatives at the state. If we were going to allow people to have gardens and on flood mitigation properties, we kind of need to regulate it. Size and what they do there. We don't need people turning entire lots into farms and fencing and leaving materials out there and stuff during flood season. So those were the changes. I don't know if you have any questions or about any of those changes. Or
Did you mention that it's completely reformatting?
Oh, yes. And this is, Stephanie and I have been wanting to implement an ORS style numbering system for Title IX. So all new chapters or revisions, anything that comes before Planning Commission and Council is going to be in a new, nice format that is going to be much easier for staff and the public to use, as opposed to kind of the older, more archaic, complex, way more complex than the city of Vernonia needs for its development code. So, thank you.
Dale, yeah.
Well, yeah, on the,
I think, are they supposed to do public testimony now?
I think they can do questions of staff at this time,
Oh, okay.
right?
I just want to make sure.
I think so.
Okay,
okay, thanks for making sure.
sure.
Talking about the motorhome or recreational park, I see the requirement was for electrical outlets to be out of the base flood elevation. So is that only on new development, or will he have to comply with the existing?
Not with the existing.
Any new?
Any new expansion. I actually have talked to him concerning that, and it's in his best interest to do it. And as he replaces those electrical boxes, getting them up. And so we actually have set a benchmark in the park, in the asphalt that he can use to come off of to know where base flood elevation is. So I mean, however he does it, bring up with a tape and an eyeglass or whatever, but he can do it. And he is aware of that. And, yeah. So as improvements happen, as he's needed to replace some of the the sewer connections. So those are coming to self-closing, self-sealing, those sorts of things. So he is very much on, protecting himself and his residents from flood hazards. So.
I'm going to go ahead, and there's a time for questions, but from the council, but I'm going to go ahead and ask for public.
Well, this is the time. Isn't it not?
Oh,
No,
no, it just said staff report and then.
no, not according to my script.
Number 5 is supposed to say council. Any questions from the
Commission.
council?
Oh, it would be planning commission, same party, yeah.
So you can go ahead and say it though. Start it.
Pardon me?
You can go ahead and start it if you want to officially.
I was going to move right into number 6.
No, you have to do number 5 first. Sorry.
Any questions from the commission?
It should say council. Sorry. It's just a.
Oh, well, in 8, I asked for questions from the council.
I'm guessing that's just additional. So typically, report, questions,
Okay.
public testimony, additional questions,
Okay.
close, deliberate.
Any more questions from the council? Go ahead, Sheree.
Does the bubble south of California affect waste management with the transfer station at all?
No, they were never, those ones that, the bubbles that disappeared were what were called shaded X.
Shaded X.
And, yeah, and the transfer station's never been, it's always been AE or floodway, depending on what part of them.
Great, that's all.
And then Rick, I think you had another question.
Yeah, Susan.
So I appreciate this, having worked with flood recovery a lot. I do have a question on your definitions. Number 2, adding levels to an existing structure.
What page are you on, Susan?
Page 5.
That would be, I know where you're.
Under 905.15. In your report.
Oh, in the report.
It's in your report, not in the,
Yeah, and then it's in the.
oh, is it there? Okay.
Yeah, for some, yeah, number 2 of substantial improvement.
So I guess I have a little bit of concern about that because we have a lot of people who can't afford to do a full elevation of their home that might be in the flood, in X zone or AE or wherever it might be, but they could afford to put a second story on. That would not be more than 50% of the market value of the structure, maybe, like you pointed out. Small house, they just need some more space. They can't afford, they don't want to build out because they know it's going to trigger having to elevate the home to base flood elevation. But is that an absolute? I'm just asking, why does that have to be there?
Because they're going to put a second story on, their house is going to be worth more money. The bottom structure gets flooded again, and FEMA doesn't want to pay for someone getting increased value without bringing their value out of the danger. So FEMA pushes back on that. I mean, all these restrictions basically allow us, as you know, to have community insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program. So if we don't want to follow the rules, or we want to push back and allow more risk in our community, then their pushback could be, you guys go get privately insured, which we know the community can't afford.
Okay.
So,
Well, and you kind of think of it, I mean, and this is always going to be an issue between like affordability and housing or adding housing space versus protecting. And it isn't, that's a big part of it is maintaining flood insurance for the community, but we also have a responsibility to protect citizens and their property from flood damage. So the scale is kind of there. You have enough money to add a level to your home, which is equivalent to
Elevating.
actually elevating it up, right? And so the two are.
Might even be cheaper to elevate
It
it.
might even, probably even cheaper to elevate your house, yes, than to add an entire new level to it.
That does not give you the extra living space, and
It does.
that space, excuse me, let me finish. The structure, the footprint as it exists today is not putting them in any more risk if they put a second story on. It's the same risk.
But it's more risk to the insurer. Is who we have to,
That I understand, but it's potentially putting some people out of the ability to increase their home size without
yeah.
extreme cost. I mean, yeah, they could sell it and move somewhere else, but they couldn't afford to do that. They might be able to afford through a program.
Yeah. And there might even be, like, we know that some of them, if we force to elevate, then some of the mortgage companies have to allow them to tack that cost onto the mortgage. So maybe they could do both if they got creative,
Yeah.
right? Because you could say, I want to do this and this is a requirement of the municipality, and their mortgage has to let them by state law tack it on the end with no change in the interest and all that. And then they use the other money to do an addition. So it is troublesome for a very few.
And I understand.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of people that are going to be affected. I just wanted to.
Yeah, but we'd probably give them insight and tell them that the state, the laws allow for their mortgage company to have to do that and help them, but.
Well, and that's, I mean, if, that's kind of that, like I said, that's that scale between protecting the community from flood hazard and providing, so why don't we just throw all of this to the wind and just not, I mean, because people, when somebody builds a new home in the floodplain, they're spending an extra couple tens of thousands of dollars to be up to, why don't we just say, you know what? Forget it. Just build however you want to build. And I'm not trying to be funny about it. That's kind of that balance. If we're talking about affordable housing, we could have a lot more homes, a lot cheaper if we didn't protect people from known flood hazards. So my thinking is somebody's going to add an entire level and double the value of their home, and we're going to allow the first level to sit down and be a known flood hazard. It has to be, it's that fine balance. It has to be one or the other. Either we're protecting people from flood hazard or we're not.
I appreciate your opinion. And I also think that it's just something, and as you pointed out, it's not going to affect a lot of people. Potentially. But I think that the argument is there's a difference between new construction, which is required to follow certain rules and regulations, and a grandfathered in existing home that's not going to create any additional.
Except that I would say it's new construction. The addition above is new construction. And that's the trigger for anything, right? It's the trigger. So I say, this is the code you have to follow. It'd be the trigger of, we got to elevate your home. Here's how you can do it on the money you have, or in piece and parcel or something.
And again, the whole reason that this came up was, like I said, 15 years ago, you could have put a whole new level on your house and not met the 50, and it would have easily met the 50% substantial improvement on a home.
Right.
But because of the crazy inflated housing costs, you could add 2 more levels to a house and be creative and do it yourself and not meet the 50% threshold for bringing the house into compliance.
Okay. I mean,
So, I mean, I guess that was the impetus of this. We weren't protecting. It seemed kind of like a loophole where people could potentially double the value of their home and not quite meet the substantial improvement of 50% real market value. and not have to come into compliance. And again, we have had a couple of new levels added on homes. In my time at the city, none of them have been in the floodplain. We were just trying to be proactive on that one.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Ben and Erica. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So now is the time for public testimony. Does any member of the public wish to speak or present testimony on this agenda item? JR?
I just had a question about the base level elevation. Who determines that and where do I find it?
There's maps.
If you go on,
It does.
if you,
Yeah.
but he could do it on Vernonia map,
I
right?
can do it on Vernonia map.
On the city's website, if you go to flood management, there's a whole thing and there's Vernonia map. You can pull up all the different contours. You can hit base flood elevation. It shows you the lines as they go across town, what the different elevations are.
Give you an elevation.
Yeah, those are all set by FEMA in the most recent FEMA map, and then they're just laid over in Ben's GIS.
And then it's hard for me to hear over here for Ben, but number two, when you've been talking about adding the story, is that something you want to add on, Vernonia does, or something the state's requiring?
No, but that is an addition that we have.
Because the
Yeah.
state, then the state came for their cab visit, we were not regularly doing substantial improvement, partly because we haven't had someone do a huge upgrade to their house in the floodplain. But when we started talking about it, we were like, well, we don't have that. And they're like, they started telling us all these scenarios where we could be triggered to have to do that process with a house. And that was one of them. And we thought, oh my gosh, we didn't even think of that. We've had houses like up here on the hill, they lifted their house and did it, or like out at your place, your dad cut the roof off and did it, didn't he, JR? Didn't he put a level on top, your dad? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, back in.
Yeah, so like, we haven't seen it a lot, but we don't want to leave the future people upside down. Should they let someone and then it becomes a FEMA nightmare because they didn't hold the substantial improvement. They didn't hold them to the task of complying on the first level of the house, because there's not a lot. We have the damage determinations during the 07 flood. If someone was just below 51%, there was no compliance required of them, right? Like we couldn't hold them. There was no leverage to say you must elevate. So there's a lot of homes that are sitting on the ground that are going to get water in another 07 type flood. And, you know.
So does it go by the 07 level? Because my folks didn't get wet inside, just the insulation underneath, but I wonder what that level would correlate if I went out and shot the floor.
Well, you can, yeah. And
Is level the highest level, or is it base level or medium level?
so the,
Base flood elevation
yeah,
is.
there's, the base flood elevation is the 1%. Well, I mean, it's more complicated than that. I mean, I can show you the maps and all of FEMA's calculations and the flood insurance study, which is all of a giant, thick, technical.
But he doesn't want that, so.
Yeah, I don't know that we want to get into
No,
that
no.
here. But if you would, yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to come in. I will show you all of those materials and
How they do
and
it.
how we calculate design flood elevation and base flood elevation based off of the FEMA data. From
Base
the,
flood is what they said. This is where the flood was. Our ordinance requires for a foot.
of 3 feet above base flood elevation or
Or
1 foot above
above the-
highest flood of record.
That's how people they can choose to go 3 feet above what FEMA said, or prove this was the level in the flood and just go 1 foot higher. So there's variables of what people can do and how they can meet the requirement.
I think there was people that went 1 foot the first time and they got flooded the second time.
Yeah, there were.
Well, and there was actually just one last, there was 2 homes that I'm aware of that in 06, they needed new foundations and They went the foot above, which was the requirements. And then a year later, we had the flood and their houses got flooded.
First floor, yeah.
And so that's why we have the new base. FEMA redid the flood zones and the base flood elevations. And before, it was all just kind of graphical and it wasn't based on any like modeling. The city of Vernonia was the first city in the United States of America to get modern, high-tech digital flood modeling to create our flood zones and our base flood elevations. So that was one of the good things that came out of the flood is we actually got that very high-tech flood zone and those base flood elevations for us to base elevations and we're not guessing, which is a problem out in the county. You buy a lot out on the Nehalem River where it's just zone A, you guess. It's basically a guess at how high you need to be and whether you're protected from flood or not. If you build a new house in the city of Vernonia, we have the data, you are protected from flood hazards.
That was going to be my next question, how the county does all this, you know?
They guess.
Yeah. Because they don't have the data sets all the way of all the unincorporated county. It's too large for them to have all the data lines like they did for the city of Vernonia.
Yep, you build a new house out in the county on the river or in the floodplain, you basically guess whether you're flood safe or
You
not.
ask the neighbors, where's the high water?
Clarification.
Sure.
Any other public testimony? Okay, thank you, JR. I will now close this public hearing at 7:12 PM. Come back into the regular meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
No, it could be deliberation. You guys want to discuss it?
Any discussion among the council? Before I entertain a motion?
I would just like to say thank you. I know this is a lot of work. It's been presented well. I appreciate all the information and your providing the short version. It really was helpful when reading through it. Thank you.
I just have one last question, Ben. So amending Title IX, Chapter 5 would prevent those two homes that decreased there by 1 foot in 2006. That would prevent their houses flooding in 2007, correct?
Today, if a house needed its foundation replaced, they would come up to the right elevation and they would have not another flooded.
Take care of that.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
I think it's important for us to be protecting the community as a whole and keeping our insurance for the community as a whole affordable and keeping compliant with that.
I'd also like to, thank the planning commission for all their hard work on, they had a public hearing on the 7th of November and here we are at this stage of the game. And thank you staff for all the work you've done. And any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept ordinance number 947, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending Title IX, Chapter 9-05. Adopt. All of that.
So moved. Thank you, Counselor Ash. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Wagner.
All right. Mayor Hobart,
Aye.
Counselor Ash,
Aye.
Counselor Webb, Counselor Normand,
Aye.
Counselor Wagner,
Aye.
motion carried. Would any counselor like to have this ordinance read in full? Hearing no such request, this is the first reading of ordinance number 947 by title only. An ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending Title 9, Chapter 9-05. Short and sweet. And if you want, you can do the second. It's up to you.
I'll move to adopt ordinance number 947, an ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending Title 9, Chapter 9-05.
Second?
Moved and seconded.
Counselor Normand,
Aye.
Counselor Wagner,
Aye.
Mayor Hobart,
Aye.
Counselor Ash,
Aye.
Counselor Webb,
Aye.
motion carried. Would any counselor like to have this ordinance read in full? Hearing no such request, this is the second and final reading of ordinance number 947 by title only. An ordinance of the city of Vernonia amending Title 9, Chapter 9-0. Effect in 30 days.
Thank you very much.
The second.
Okay, any topics from the floor tonight? Topics from the floor?
Right, I didn't hear what you said. I have one.
Okay.
Steve Weller.
No.
Nope.
My questions, that's good.
Oh,
Okay, consent agenda for acceptance, Parks Committee meeting minutes for October 2024. Library Board meeting minutes for September 2024.
Accept the consent.
So moved. For second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Ash.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda.
Supposed to be.
Consent agenda for approval, city council meeting minutes for November 18th, 2024.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda for approval.
So moved,
I'll second.
seconded by Counselor Webb.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Okay, any unfinished business? No. New business, A, Parks Committee recommendation, Erica Johansson application. On page 60.
May I?
Absolutely.
So Erica came into the Parks Committee, probably about a month to 2 months ago now, to discuss with them the signage that's being added to Hawkins. And she came on behalf of the Lions Club. So I think they kind of, nice, they got an in-person impression of her. I've known Erica for a little while as well, and I'm excited that she volunteered to join the committee. I think she'd be a really great addition.
Yeah. I agree. Any questions on the application from Erica? Well, if I can get a general consensus from the city council, thumbs up.
Sir.
Thumbs up for me.
Okay. Well, it's my honor as a fellow Lion member to appoint Erica Johansson to the Parks Committee. Congratulations, Erica. Pass on the word tomorrow to me. Okay, thank you. Staff report, no smoking signage.
Okay, so as you guys know, the Parks Committee came to council asking for a change in the ordinance. Council did not approve that change, but that was what was holding us up from ordering the signs. So we didn't have any of the signs ordered per the ordinance that existed. So following ordinance 914, You can see, I put in my summary that there are certain parks that are no smoking. That is Archie Das Dog Park, Pulse Family Skate Park, Ora Bullmeyer Park, and Shea Park. There are two parks that have designated smoking areas. That will be Hawkins Park and Spencer Park. And then there are parks with what are called smoke-free areas, and those are Anderson, Nehalem, River Park, and Vernonia Lake. And those are ones that have facilities, playgrounds, athletic fields. They will be getting the no smoking within 50 feet signage. And then I gave you basically a map of each park and what the ordinance 914 does in each park. So you can see there that we're going to be posting around the bathroom, picnic, and playground facilities of Anderson Park that there's no smoking within 50 feet. Archie Das is no smoking already. Same with Hawkins. It'll be around the bathroom and the playground structure. Posted at the skate park, although someone stole it, so we'll have to replace that sign. The Halem River Park and Campground, that'll be around the bathrooms and playground. And then Ora Bullmeyer's no smoking. Shay's no smoking. Spencer, there'll be no smoking around the play shed, picnic shelter, bathroom, playground area. And there's already no smoking across the way. Hawkins and Spencer are difficult to find, Hawkins and Spencer, the no smoking area. We're still the designated where we said we would put like a disposal for your cigarette butts and a bench. That's getting really hard. We're trying to figure out where that can be and not be downwind into the 50 section. So it's going to be on the periphery of both of those, but we have not found the spots for those yet where they meet the rest of the ordinance. And then for all the parks that don't get the 50-foot, we're going to do the sign that Ben created, the respect our families. Please don't smoke in the park. Not telling you can't, but if you could be nice and not, we'd appreciate it. And I'm working with Haley. We've been playing phone tag back and forth. From what I understand from her in our phone tag, they are going to be able to pay for the restrictive, the stay away 50 feet signs, and we will be paying for these and the benches and the little disposal places. So that was my update on that. Are there any questions? Oh,
Susan,
Is this language that's used somewhere else as well and well received?
well, what do you mean? Please respect our,
Families and children,
he saw it in another town, off of another town sign that didn't have restrictive, just wanted people to please not smoke in the park.
I was just curious where that language came from. I was a little,
Put off by it?
yeah.
What would you have it say?
I
haven't ordered anything.
right. I don't know. This was
We
really,
respect our families and children, please don't.
you shouldn't smoke. I like that, actually. I mean, I just find it a little uncomfortable. So this was, when it came out last week, this was the first I'd really looked at what it would look like and
Oh,
had kind of an
Yeah.
effect on me. And it's like, that it was just very.
is it the respect word? I'm trying to figure out
I'm actually-
what's icky about it.
It's more the families and children. It's like, it just, I don't know. You know me, I wordsmith the heck out of stuff, but I just wanted to understand this. And I don't want to be the person saying, oh, no, we need a different sign.
Well, and this is just a draft. So if you guys have something else you'd like to say, we could easily put that on there.
I'd like.
We're not, we gave a shot at it, looked at what other places are doing and made us a sign on our letterhead with the logo, but we could put whatever.
I really like having a sign. I like the intent. I don't know how anybody else feels about it.
Maybe he
I
could,
mean, I believe we shouldn't have the smoke.
he could pitch a couple new options for the top line or something. I don't know.
I might
Before we order them, is that?
ponder it a little bit too. That's okay with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we're not,
So are we just going to table it till the next meeting?
Well, I mean, we could, well, I think all of this is happening because it's per what's in the ordinance.
Right.
What this sign becomes, we could bring back some options or give you guys a chance to think on it and not order any of this stuff. I can still order all the other stuff I need.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not really holding me back. We can bring it back to the next meeting. Or if someone wants to come up with it, come with your idea.
We're not to take any action on this anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to make any decisions because I'm just pulling off what's in the ordinance.
Thank you.
But I'll talk to Ben and we'll bring it back. Oh, yeah.
So with areas or parks where the area that the 50 feet extends from, for example, Spencer Park, it's not a singular point, right? You have multiple structures and the playground. And you could come from multiple sides. So are you envisioning just one sign for that whole zone, or are there going to be signs like at the opposing sides facing out? Like what's the strategy?
So there's a couple options that we've talked about. I'm kind of opposed to Signville because I think if you have to put so many up, they aren't looking at them anyway. But one of the options was like an informational sign that says, no smoking within 50 feet of public facility. So like a wordy sign on the main park sign, and then a sign that says no smoking within 50 feet in the playground, one on the bathroom, right? But not like a between these two signs, more like this is the no smoking near these things, right? So someone that is a smoker that wants to be respectful can clearly see, hey, at this park, this is the rule, right? Because the other ones are posted, the absolutely no smoking, those are right on the main board when you go to the park.
No, I know. I guess it was.
We're thinking it's probably going to have.
Here at the front, right, facing the parking or something for.
There's probably going to be one on each of those structures and one in the playground, just a small one that says.
In one spot, then it's like, within 50 feet behind that.
Yeah.
You have another structure, so it's going to.
Yeah.
Go further. Right? So
that's why I'm saying the main park sign would say no smoking within 50 feet of picnic shelters, bathroom facility, playground. And then they'll have small ones on them so it's not like big signs everywhere.
Multiple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that if you're coming from the backside of the playground, there's probably one on a short post that says no smoking within.
Okay.
From the
non
side.
And if they were going to pay for like one sign, one-sided facing one direction, and then if you came from anywhere else, you didn't know until you.
Yeah. No, they're probably paying for the bigger ones that are more informational, and then we'll buy a lot of the small ones that just say no smoking within 50 feet.
Okay.
On the bathroom, on the side of the play shed. So it's not like big Signville.
Okay. Do you have a timeline? I know, working with Haley, it's not all in our control on when they would be installed, because I know the committee has been really.
No, I just have to get how long her turnaround is, because once we have them, we can roto-hammer into the play shed and the bolt easy. Mitch could do it. Once he has them, he could do it in a day. Yeah.
I just know the one.
I just don't know who she uses to produce her signs and what their turnaround is. Like for us, these ones would be like a 2-week turnaround.
Right.
For our person, but I don't know where the county goes or, yeah.
I
can give the committee a heads up.
Yeah.
And I know.
Just because, it wouldn't be a thing if it was just the recent changes, but since they never got the signs from the original.
Ordinance, yeah. They're itching for them, yeah. Salty.
Okay, any other questions about the signage in the parks? Okay,
Bring you something.
well, do you want to move on to staff report?
Sure.
Campground, Lake Campground, phase 1, Josette.
So, Counselor Ash asked about this one. So as you guys know, NV5 did do a phase 1 plan for the underground infrastructure of the new Vernonia Lake campground design. And that would just be water, sewer, a manhole where the sewer comes to, and then laying electrical conduit, and then plantings, so the big trees. That's what's in the phase 1 design. we've had a run of parks projects for like the last 5 years. So we've done the picnic shelter, the skate park, taking down the stadium, the new docks, the new playground equipment at Anderson. So Parks has had a lot of hits and we've been running great, but currently with the docks still needing to be offloaded and the new docks and whatever incidental costs there are with that, the fund's super low right now. We're kind of done with the summer camping and now we're kind of in the lull of income. So there currently isn't the funds to buy the supplies, which would be the pipe, the conduit, all the fittings. The manhole is about $5,000. And so what I want to do, if it works out with everyone, is come to the Parks Committee and talk about getting the phase one in the 25-26 budget. There's some, we talked about, Counselor Webb came in today and talked about SCCs. There's not too much in the system development charge funds for parks. And really we would want to kind of hold that money as cash match should our in-kind match not be enough, right? We don't want to spend it doing in-kind work and then not have it as cash to bolster our in-kind match. So I would like to meet with Parks Committee in January and then work with them to develop kind of phase one, how we go about it. Get it in there. And then there's also the weird shell game of when your in-kind work happens, how long it counts for the grant. And then should they not fund you, the first ask, and you have to come back, there's a whole bunch of moving parts. So that's what I kind of want to discuss with Parks about, like the reality of where will we be? What will we be asking for? What is the risk? Could we lose something in the meantime? But I think phase one's doable by us. It's not very difficult. It is grading cat work and putting stuff in. We definitely need at least $5,000 because that's what the manhole costs. And it's pretty simple design. Basically, there's going to be a pipe going to the manhole in the park from the wet well at pump station 3, and then that will go to the side where the electrical and sewer and water is, and then that just kind of fans out like a tree. So it's very simple, not very complicated. We can easily do it. It's just the money. So that's where I'm at with that. You guys have any questions about that? Yeah.
And one concern, next year is our off year as far as paving. So our workload, it's our lower workload year for public works. The following year, if we're thinking of pulling, then it's going to be a paving year. I'm just thinking of the logistics.
You mean you want to skip
Well, and when's our deadline for even applying
April and May?
to get, how soon do they turn around?
And they tell you in August.
Oh, so.
So we'd have to be ready to do a
So
ask.
we've already missed next summer.
What do you mean okay, I'm confused.
So you're
talking about Public Works doing it or asking for the grant?
Well,
Because the grants application deadlines are April and May. They tell you in August. Then you have till that rest of that to do it.
so I think we're talking two different ways here. So you're thinking we just do in-house and it's skin in the game for then the application.
Yeah, and I'm thinking,
You go to them with an application and say, our in-kind is going to be our labor and these minor, we pay for our piping and stuff, manhole. And then ask for, so say we had 20 grand in-kind and monetarily ask for 100 grand, because it's going to cost, again, that's what I was asking today. What's that first phase one cost to rough it in? So we'd be gravelled out. We could actually have camping and bring revenue.
and we could go for a grant for phase one if you want to. We just had talked about us doing it ourselves as skin in the game. could go for a grant every phase. And phase one would be cheap, but then if you get a grant for it, it doesn't get a count as in kind when you have the next ask. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay.
But I think what you're asking is, couldn't we apply for a grant that's really more for phase two, but say our skin in the game is this phase one that we are doing this summer. So you haven't done it by the time you did the grant application, but you will be doing it by the time you complete what the grant is for. Is that right? That was what.
But the risk of that is you could do that in-kind work. They don't give you the grant. They don't give you when you try to use that in-kind work.
Yeah.
I think you kind of want to funnel in the in-kind work into the grant application.
Right.
Either you get it or you don't. We're not spending our in-kind.
Right. So what I'm thinking is you do the income, you do phase, if you're doing phase one by yourself, you're putting the money in the budget. The money becomes available July 1. That work gets done in the dry time of year. You're closer to your ask. You've just completed it when you're asking in April. That's the best case scenario for it being, hey, we've just put this skin in the game and done all this work. And we have this great plan. You already you already funded the design out of a grant. We did our own part first. And now we're asking for you to fund the second phase. That's a way more sellable.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about.
But if you apply then in April 26, you're saying, and you don't get awarded till the end of the summer, it's appalling that that's the timeline for an outdoor grant, is you find out at the end of the dry season. But so if you find out then in August 26, then you have the wet season. So then we aren't actually.
But for their grant, you're not.
27?
No, you're not required to. You're not required to do. How am I going to try and say this? So if we put the money in the budget in 25, right? We did the skin in the game in 25. We would be applying 26.
Right.
You would have until they sign so they'll tell us in August, yeah, you got the money for phase two. It takes like 60 days to sign a contract. So your contract's like October, and you have a year from that to get it done.
Right.
So maybe
it's dry again, it's 27, and you're saying the whole campground is a 3-year plan, but that's only getting you.
It's a 3-year plan if you have the money. We don't have the money. So ours is going to be stretched out or fits and starts. However, I mean, I don't know, how many years did we go ask for the bicycle skills park, Scott?
14.
No, I mean, how many times did we go? We like pitched it, and then we pitched the skate park like 3 years.
The Skills Park, we actually got the first time.
Oh, but then we reused it as bathroom.
Yeah.
So we went 3 years and never got funded. The skate park till we had to just do it ourselves. So it's not a promise, but if we can make it more palatable for them, like, here's your design. We just spent our money. Now can we ask you for more money? You kind of play the game.
I know. It feels like it's going to be like an 8-year campground.
It might be, sadly.
And then the other
little
thing
town.
I think is a little frustrating to hear is that things like the senior path have an impact on it. Not that anyone was not supportive of the senior path, but it literally didn't even come from the committee. That came from citizens who applied for a grant on their own. And so be like, oh, the thing you guys worked on for the last few years, because of these things that are coming in, like from the sides, kind of circumventing the process, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know how we control people asking for a grant and then coming and telling me they got it.
Well, I know, but.
I mean, that's the problem, right? You would.
Didn't pay for all of it.
Right.
If you're saying we're out of budget because we paid for it, right? So
right.
They can get the grant and do it, but when that gets put on the city and now we're automatically paying for
The extra stuff, right?
and everything.
I know. I don't know.
Problematic.
Short of saying, go give the grant back, we're not taking it. I could have done that. I didn't. Maybe should go in the future or just, hey, heads up.
Okay, the grant is great. What's the plan for the rest of the expenses, right?
Right. Right. No, I think, yeah.
Take, I think the senior path is a good thing. It's not a dig on that. It's just an example of these things that kind of come in and you're like, oh, now we're doing that. And that's affecting this thing we're actually
Yeah.
working on that's in the master plan and everything else.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not a grant, it's a roof on something that fails, or you know what I mean? So it's kind of hit or miss how much we can get done with the small amount of funds that are in that fund. But yeah, I get it.
And then I also, sorry, last thing, agree with Dale that if we even got the gravel in, then we start bringing in that extra revenue. And that, you know, if you're saying, okay, well, we need to look at how we're going to fund this just from our own revenue without all these special funding sources that we're no longer getting, that helps that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's the thing. If we can do phase one on our own, even if it's longer timeline than we think, and get a base primitive there with it minimum water spigots, it won't have electrical. But then Dale and I were talking about that too. West O is going to be a bigger charge, but our electrician to pull line and conduit that's already there probably isn't going to be a huge expense. It's going to be the housings that are a huge expense, right? Those stanchions that have the 50 or 30 amp and all that. That's where you spend the money. But the pulling the line, we could get electric there. It's just how many, and there's only, I guess, 6 stanchions. So we could price that out too. But yeah, it's a game trying to massage it into reality.
I just had one thing, Josette, and I've talked to Stephanie about it last week, and I probably should talk to Ben about it too, but I'm going to ask you, since we're talking about the campground. Floodplain permits. And the reason I ask that is because it's in the floodplain. And if FEMA were to come down in the near future and say, drop the hammer on it and said, no, you're not going to build a campground there.
Yeah.
If we have our permits in place, there's nothing they could do. We can go through with it.
Yeah.
Are those being drawn up now?
Well, it's a little different in FEMA has a little bit different on public infrastructure, right? So just like we're still allowed to have the transfer station down there, we changed from dumping to containers, right? So they allowed us to do something in the floodplain for the public benefit. They tweak how we have to do it, right? So we have not pulled a permit for I think we can make the case also though, that we all know water didn't get there. To the base of Lakeview Drive, that is not where water got in 07. So we can prove that if we had to them.
I'm just.
Yeah, really, they're the most worried about what's insurable, right? But they let us put a bathroom at Spencer and it's flood-proof, right? The water can come in the vents, come up the wall and drain out. And like Ben's saying, we will have to put in self-sealing the sewer cleanouts. They'll have to close automatically and seal. We'll have to put in stanchions that are extra tall because they'll have to be out above base flood. We'll have to follow all our own rules, but they don't prohibit from public type things that aren't building livable structures, things that couldn't have water come up and down and get hosed out. Basically, they're okay with that. If it's a block building, your mechanical's above base flood, it's never going to get wet. It's up in the water heater's probably going to have to be up in the rafters.
I was just kind of making sure.
No, we're aware of all of that stuff. Yeah.
Got to keep our ace in the.
Right.
I hate to see that happen.
No, I don't think they're most worried about what they insure family residences with the National Flood Insurance. They want people living in harm's way.
Do you have something else, Dale?
Well, just follow-up question. Did you have a chance to talk to Angie about using the SDC funds to the money that we have expensed? We'd be talking camp, park, exercise equipment, and then also the work we did with the old docks.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to talk to her today because on my winter.
Yeah, we could take, that could hit the SDC fund, not the budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that money's for when we're expanding capacity. So
Yeah,
I don't want to deplete it, but
right.
might want to use it for skin in the game for,
Next,
yeah.
yeah.
But
And I think the state really did most small towns a disservice when they don't allow you to use the value of the land you're committing to the project.
Yeah.
That's a ripoff. We own that land, we maintain it as a city. We should get to count the value of that as skin in the game. We're identifying it as a park and a campground.
5 year or something.
Yeah, you have to have purchased it within the last 5 years.
Is there any value in the historic structure?
No, not to them.
I told you could sell it to me for $1 and then have to buy it back.
We thought maybe there was a way to get around it, but I think they'd be onto us, Dale.
Dale's like, jokes on you, I'm keeping it.
Dale's like, I'm gonna build my own campground.
Just plants 47 trees.
Just a forest.
Okay, any other questions for Joseph? Thank you, Joseph.
Sure.
A lot of work there. Business from the departments.
We have one.
Staff report.
No, we don't have one.
Oh,
Usually the police reports in there. We don't have one.
right. Ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 2024-11, adopting a supplemental budget. And all the information on this is 74 to 76.
So as Angie states here in her staff report, the auditors have asked us to use the appropriation format. And so this has no changes to any budget figures. It's just the way it's presented. They want it presented this way. We just try to make them happy, I guess.
I participated in a review on the audit portion with our city and 20 minutes on the phone and went really well with the auditors. So I gave Angie A+.
Thumbs up.
So any questions about this?
How it looks.
Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move, we adopt resolution number 2024-11. Resolution of City Council, the City of Vernonia, Oregon, adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2024-.
Second?
Seconded and Counselor Ash, made by Counselor Webb.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion
Thank you. Any correspondence? Okay. City Administrator report.
All right. So still waiting until March, February, March for the testing of the old dump. I have new information since my report. It's kind of hard when I write them on Wednesdays and then get new information, but Lida Contracting is going to do us a solid and use their loader to offload the docks for us. So it looks like we're going to offload them into the lake parking lot on the 10th. They'll spend however much time Mitch needs there to put the railings on. And then if Lida still has that equipment, he's willing to help us move them to the water. And then the only thing we'll have to do after that is do the chains with the scuba diver. But in the meantime, we could easily anchor them in place with the gangplank on them and they won't go anywhere, but we do need to get the chains on to complete it. So yeah, so the 10th, yay, they're coming. That's also going to help us because the company out of Woodland, Washington was like, we got to get these things out of here. We don't want to charge you storage fees. And I'm like, I don't want storage fees. So it worked out great. So big kudos to him for helping us out. No update. They didn't have an update for the ADA ramps because of Thanksgiving. They canceled the meeting last week. So I don't know any update other than they said they're doing Rainier, and then they're going to bounce to Forest Grove, and they still plan on coming to us in March. So that's what I know. Louisiana North-South connection is done. We sent in the final documentation to the state and closing out the connection and the water main upgrade. I got answer back from the union members. They are reviewing it. I was like, what is going on? They're just, it's a teeny thing and we're already in the period. So we're in the contract period. Because remember, it took so long to sign the last agreement. It was only for 1 year. Now we're in the new period, a year into the new period. And we're like, can we just sign this thing? So hopefully we'll get approval soon. For the Springboard Sewer Project, the contractor is continuing to install the pipe and manholes associated with the boring. And the final connection will be Hawkins Parks to Weller's Field. DEQ upcoming permit. So it's still in that public comment period. I sent you guys the new permit criteria. We don't foresee anything changing. The state didn't feel like any of the things they were allowing us to do were contentious and was going to get pushback from the public. So, and then we have the upcoming council meeting on the 16th, and then we're closed at noon on the 24th and all day on the 25th.
Dale.
What are your thoughts on the DEQ permitting for wastewater and the hyperreach trench? They do have a couple pretty tight standards in there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about a comment pushing back on that a little bit?
On the criteria to use it, the testing?
No, there's two aspects, I believe, that were E. coli.
Oh, the grab samples?
And,
Yeah.
Can't remember. No, it wasn't ammonia, but anyway, it might have been ammonia.
Yeah.
There's two of them that are quite a bit more strict than our surface discharge to the river,
Yeah.
which is like,
It's the,
doesn't make
that's
sense.
right. That's all the EPA injection well criteria. So I don't know that we're going to be able to change it because they're pushing back in allowing us with those samples. That's kind of the best they could get out of the EPA is like allow it, but with conditions. But I think the ammonia thing I'm not so worried about because we already know it's about time for wastewater compliance systems to come redo the air hose. That would be the time to increase ammonia treatment. And then that wouldn't be as problematic to us, right? I mean, we already know we're going to pick them up, flip them over, put new air hose on and put them back in. And that would be the time to add additional treatment, whether it's aeration in Lagoon 1 using the same manifolds and blower capacity, or it's more pollutants to deal with ammonia. E. coli. And then we also talked to DEQ about doing a public campaign of like educating the public. When you put these certain things down the sewer, this costs your community more money. Because certain things, they could change really small things, quit using certain types of things or quit putting them down the drain and help us. So a public education campaign would be important too, in what we talked about. Because there's certain, you don't want sulfates on your hair. Well, we don't want them in the wastewater either. So there's benefits if people can just make little tweaks. But yeah, it's hard, but I think EPA is going to hold tight on the grab sample condition.
Because right now, we really don't have a grasp on if we're going to be able to use it or not because
Right.
we didn't have a chance to sample
Right,
this year to see even where we're at.
right, the base.
Oh, I mean, here again, we're back to that $5 million trench in the ground that we could get denied even using because of this super tight requirement, but it's ironic, they'll let us in the summer with.
Put it in the river. Yeah,
Put it magnitudes of pi 5 of that criterion directly into the river.
Yeah, they got really
It's like-
screwed off with the injection well and
It's where it's
aquifer.
going to go, but it's going to go through the ground and polish even better.
Right.
It's just, I mean, I understand they're trying to protect ground well water, but you can't use ground well water in the city of Vernonia.
Right.
And that.
And we had to-
fall under the city's properties.
Right, we had to own everything on top of it.
Yeah. Was the requirement. So I just didn't know how that process is. If you know, it's kind of like a public hearing. If you don't raise the issue during the public comment period.
Go on there and raise the issue, Dale. He said that's where council should go. If they have comment, they should be the public and comment. So that would be
Well, I didn't want to do anything without.
I mean, that's where council should put their statement in, is what they told us. Yeah, so if there's concurrence,
Draft it and we could all put our,
I don't know how much time
30
even.
days, it's got to.
Yeah, it's coming up. But
I mean, I would be okay with whatever
I would too.
Dale drafts saying it's council.
If you guys are okay with it, let Dale comment.
Yeah.
And private citizen or counselor?
You can comment as council.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the body that's under the permit.
Please.
Council President, go
Yeah,
ahead.
there you go.
I don't know if it's worth anything, but at least it would.
At least it's on the record, yeah.
Okay.
I think we do have ways to get around and use our treatment more efficiently to get that stuff
And I
where
agree.
we're on the same page.
So back to the docks.
Yes,
Did you wiggle out of the floating test?
I don't even need that company anymore, Rick.
Yeah.
We're doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
I have a small,
We'll test them on our lake.
Well, and should we need something, there's plenty of room to put another float. I did the calculations and me and the engineer went through the calculations, and if 5 200-pound men are standing on the gangplank, it's still going to be above water.
Yeah.
So we're like, this doesn't make sense. The weight of the gangplank, the weight of those men plus the flotation here, it'll still hold 1,000 pounds more than that above water. So
10K. I mean,
going to get it under.
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we'll just do it ourselves.
so just for clarification, isn't the reason we sent the railings was so they could be built onto the docks?
No,
Installing them.
no, they weren't. They were so that the flat, the mounting brackets and the holes would all be
Lined up.
on the docks.
Okay.
So we sent the railings up there. They made sure they all fit. They numbered them and took them back off
Okay.
for transport because you can't transport.
As they get here,
Railings.
put it back
So
on.
we're literally just bolting them on.
Yeah, bolting them
I
on.
thought we had like,
No, I mean, I want him to do a good job, right? I don't want some aluminum scrapper to come steal the railings. So he's going to do a thoughtful, thorough job. But yeah, it's just a lot of bolts. And I didn't want him trying to do that while someone's waiting to put him in the water. So that's why when took it on ourselves, it was a drop it, give him time to put it on, and then we'll do the floating in a different day.
I'm assuming we get new bolts.
They supply the bolts.
Good. Yeah. Well, we got a lot of spares.
Yeah, but ours were lied.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, thank you, Josette.
Sure.
Any items from counselors? Susan?
I'll be missing the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I will be in sunshine and warm,
Okay.
but I may actually pop on.
Okay, I have nothing. So we'll move right into action item summary.
Okay, so staff's going to notify Erica Johansson of her appointment to the Parks Committee. And staff's going to bring to the second meeting of December some park signage amendments to the first sentence of the sign.
Very much.
Okay. All right. Yara,
I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to speak up for council here. I was at that meeting that was referred to as being dismissive or rude or whatever the comment was. It's hard for me to hear back here about the smoke. I thought you and staff were very respectful. I didn't see a problem with it. I understand people get their feelings hurt. They don't get their ideology pushed through. I understand from other people in the parks department that certain people have this obsession with it. And I think that's what it was. So you guys are doing great. You're doing fine. And I want to stick up for you. And one more thing, Anderson Park looks the worst I've seen it in 6 years. I don't know what's going on down there. I don't know the people down there. I did a drive-through yesterday and I took a close look and it was like, what's going on down here? So that might be part of your problem with renting down there. Was very few places rented. I just wanted to let that out. Maybe they need some help down there. I don't know.
yeah, I drove down there through there today. It is pretty bad.
Bad meaning what?
Still a lot of leaves around. The gutters are full of leaves. The kiosk has got a lot of leaves on the roof. The gutters are plugged up. It hasn't been raked up. It's a mess.
Got it.
So with that note,
We're done.
I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:02 PM. Meeting adjourned. Public.